Hi, I'm Gary Bolhauer. I've been teaching, training, and consulting for over 50 years, primarily in the Minnesota and Wisconsin states. I'm a professor emeritus at the College of St. Scholastica, and it's my honor to share with you today a coffee break course on the common good. We're all involved in creating a community that is civil and humane, a healthy community that works for all of us. A healthy community is not only the result of public workers doing their jobs well, or all of us in our various capacities doing our jobs well, but it depends also on volunteers of every sort, cleaning neighborhoods and shorelines and working on political campaigns, driving elders to doctor appointments, delivering meals, reading to kids, mentoring young leaders, showing up on boards and committees of countless nonprofit organizations that focus on issues and concerns and programs that bring about our well-being as a community. Only when we make personal decisions and communal decisions for the common good do we create this kind of healthy community. So the foundation of a healthy community is this value of the commons, the common good. Our human flourishing depends on nurturing and growing this value. The common good is a rich, multifaceted concept that is central to wise decision-making, personally and communally. When we live out this value, we try to see other people's perspectives. We go beyond our own individual viewpoint. We try to understand the needs of others. We enter into their experience with compassionate empathy and deep inquiry, appreciative questioning, so that we might understand another and then make decisions that go beyond our own individual interests to take into account what is needed for others, for our common human flourishing. This value is so critical that I think it's important for us to model it for young people, to take them along when we're working in our community or volunteering, and to encourage and nurture this value of the common good, of understanding the preciousness of other lives through story. I wrote a story about the common good, a story that includes an awakening about sharing the commons, the common resources that are critical to our well-being, and understanding the needs of others. Of course, the best way to teach is by example. So we as adults need to reflect with our kids and our grandkids about our own decisions to enter into the experience of others and to create a community that is equitable and welcoming for all. The story that I've created is called A Common Thirst. It's about the goats and the sheep who live in different parts of the land. The goats in the mountains, the sheep on the plains. And one year, no snow melts in the mountains and no rain falls on the plains. And so the goats and sheep are thirsty. And they decide to travel to each other's kingdoms, searching for water and food. The goats and the sheep are very different from each other. They don't know each other. They don't trust each other. But they are challenged to step into each other's experience, to find a new way to live. So here's the story.
A Common Thirst, written by Gary Bollhauer, illustrated by Sarah Brockie. Not far from here, the land was divided into towering mountains and level plains. Sure-footed goats ruled the mountains, where snowfall melted into streams that rushed down the slopes, giving the goats all the water they needed. Plains were ruled by gentle sheep. They were never thirsty because rain fell on the plains, making meandering creeks. But one year, no snow fell, and not a single rain cloud filled the sky. The stream beds turned bone dry. No green shoots or grasses grew. The thirsty, hungry goats gathered around their wise king, who listened to their grumblings. Surely, he thought, I can convince the sheep on the plains below to share their water and food. The sheep were thirsty and hungry too, because the meandering creeks also had become dry as dust. The weary sheep gathered around their wise queen, who listened to their grumblings. Surely, she thought, I can convince the goats in the mountains to share their water and food. As the goats journeyed, they saw the sheep plodding across the plains toward them. As the sheep journeyed, they saw the goats climbing down the mountains toward them. The sheep and the goats met in the foothills, an unfamiliar place, neither mountain nor plain. When the king of the goats and the queen of the sheep approached each other, their scrawny bodies, dusty coats, sad eyes made clear neither had water or food. A full moon cast an eerie light over the barren land. Feeling fear and mistrust, the sheep and the goats made separate camps. The sheep have nothing to offer us, the king said. Let's create a safe circle and rest. We will decide what to do in the morning. The goats are just as hungry and thirsty as we are, said the queen. Let's flock close together and rest. Tomorrow, we will decide what to do. But the young sheep and the young goats could not sleep in the bright moonlight. Fascinated with the foothills, the kids and the lambs were eager to explore. As they wandered, the lambs and the kids came face to face. At first, they were afraid, but then they started to speak. The youngest lamb asked, how do you climb on the slippery rocks so high in the mountains? And the youngest kid asked, doesn't your wool get heavy in the rain? The lambs and the kids talked and wandered late into the night until they found a cave where they could rest. Inside, the moonlight shone through a crack. As the youngest kid walked toward the light, he heard a faint gurgling, bubbling sound. Suddenly, his hoof slipped into a crevice and made a most wonderful splash. Water! The lambs and the kids shouted. The older goats and sheep came running and quickly separated the young ones. This is our water, bellowed the king of the goats. It gurgles at the foot of the mountains, and we rule the mountains. No, insisted the queen of the sheep. This is our water. It bubbles at the edge of the plains and belongs to the creatures of the plains. The king and the queen argued for hours as the sun rose in the sky. Suddenly, the youngest kid collapsed. The king of the goats declared, "We will protect our youngest kid so he can drink." In a weak but clear voice, the youngest kid said, "I won't drink this water unless it is shared by us all. We all have stories and dreams and thirst." The king and the queen knew in their hearts the young goat spoke the truth. They guided the kids and lambs to drink the gurgling, bubbling water together. For as long as the drought lasted, goats and the sheep met in the foothill cave to quench their common thirst. At last, after several long, dry weeks, clouds gathered over the mountains and rain fell on the high ridges. Water ran down the mountains and into the valley, bringing life to the slopes and plains again. As the sheep and goats prepared to journey homeward, they agreed to gather in the foothills every year to always remember their common thirst, their common life.
If we have the courage to try to understand another's perspective, to try to step into another person's experience with empathy, then we begin to see the value of the commons. It is a challenging value because it asks us to take an attitude of abundance rather than an attitude of scarcity. To believe that when we work together, we have more than enough for all of us. When we focus on the common good, we realize that our lives are inextricably interrelated, interdependent, connected. We belong to one rich, diverse human family in which every life is precious